Hello. We'll just give it a couple minutes, see if a few others join. And you, honey. Hope you get some decent rest in amongst all the chaos. This story that I'm going to do tonight is one that I wrote myself. It's inspired by true events. And it's about somewhere local. So we'll see how it goes down. Oh, nah, nae good. Nae good at all. Well, let's see if anybody else is coming. Doesn't look like it. It might just be a ghost story just for you then. So, we might as well start then. My little book of writings. These are all my stories. One of the little things I do when I have time. I hate this cold, I really do. While this is a ghost story, it doesn't actually take part at Christmas. I don't have one about Christmas, but the tradition is a ghost story at Christmas. So, this one's called Hawthorne Manor. It was a lovely sunny day, if a little breezy. He had been sent to evaluate a castle, and the owner wanted a quick sale. So James volunteered for the job. He was a good salesman with the gift of the gab, and that confident manner that had always served him well, especially when dealing with the ladies. He had driven 50 miles to get to this place, but with the stereo blasting in the car, he didn't mind the drive. It cleared his head. The thought of going back to the office was not an appealing one. It hadn't been a welcoming place lately, and the deadline pressures were getting to him. Today would be a good way of getting some of it out of his system. He enjoyed old buildings anyway. They had fascinated him from childhood, with their thick curtain walls and impenetrable iron yet, portcullis to you and me. They had always seemed the ideal for him, protection and isolation in one, the space to think without being disturbed. The entrance was coming up on his right. Surrounded by woodland, you couldn't see anything of the building as yet. He slowed to take in the view and entered the driveway. In this building's history, there had been many incarnations, one of which was a tourist attraction. So it still had a car park just within the driveway. He pulled in and he grabbed his trusty old camera. He didn't like digital cameras. He preferred the old point, click, and hope for the best and develop. He felt that digitals just couldn't capture the soul of a place. Getting out of the car, he figured he wouldn't need his jacket as the wind had died down, and it truly was a beautiful day. Following the unnecessary signpost in the car park, he walked up the only gravel track that must lead toward the castle. The land rose on his right side, and looking up he saw a young lamb staring at him with its lizard-like eyes, its head tilted to one side. He sneaked a snap. The shutter sound had alerted the mother, who let out a long, low bleat, to which the lamb turned and ran toward the safety of Mum. To James's left, the land dropped away steeply, perhaps about 15 foot lower, with a little burn running across the bottom. This side was planted more thickly with evergreens and a few old beech and sycamores looking deeper into the woods. He could see a large ancient oak sitting in its very own little pool of water. Personal supply, don't you know, only reserved for the oldest of trees, James thought to himself. He hunkered down to get a good shot of the old oak when he noticed a stag wandering across the shot. James held his breath and snapped what he hoped would be a fantastic shot, as behind the stag there was a young female peeking out from behind the oak. He couldn't take another, as they had caught his scent on the breeze and charged off into the forest. Carrying on down the path, he realised that it must be about half a mile long, if not more. From his position now, all he could see was what he thought must be a section of the curtain wall, just visible through the arch formed by the trees along the track. It was almost like some kind of dream. The tree-lined, wildlife-filled walk to his own private castle. Wishful thinking on his part. Finally reaching the Z-bar gate, he could see the building. A huge square tower, easily 100 feet tall and perhaps 50 feet wide, loomed over him, casting its squat dark shadow over him and stretching down the hill and into the forest. This truly was a massive tower house. James climbed over the gate and snapped a couple of shots of the small tower on his left. This one was about half the height of the main tower, and much more slender, perhaps only space for one room on each floor. Connecting the two towers was a curtain wall that rose 3/4 of the way up the slim tower. He dipped to one knee to fit both towers into his photo, and he was getting back up. He noticed movement in the large tower, an arm waving from the top window tucked under the crow steps in the north-facing gable. It was indicating to go towards the south side of the tower, and a female voice called out, "You'll find the gateway around that side." James waved back and shouted, "Thank you." He headed up the slight incline, moving out of the shadow into the warm sunlight. He noticed a quaint old manor house in the opposite field, just on the brow of the hill. It had a lovely little turreted tower on one side, very photogenic and nowhere near as impressive as this place he'd come to value. The boundary between the two properties was a thick barrier of hawthorns. Some looked really well established. Then he realised the castle's name, Hawthorne Manor. Which came first, he thought, the barrier or the name? Just as he rounded the corner of the tower, he noticed the wind had returned. He wandered towards the hawthorns, looking for a nice picture of the tiny fruits just budding, surrounded by the thorns. James really was a frustrated photographer, hidden inside an estate agent's job. He had captured the nature shot he wanted, and then when he turned, he gasped in surprise. Another tower, a slender one again, but still impressive. This side of the building was huge, literally filling the field it stood in. The arched entryway was in the centre of the sun-drenched yet breezy south-facing wall. There was no portcullis, just a solid oak door with a cast-iron lion's head door knocker attached in the centre. He knocked 3 times. The echo within seemed to go on forever. After waiting a few minutes, he reckoned the owner was probably still in the large tower, so he pushed the door. He'd noticed it shift a little when he knocked. He was right, it was unlocked. Passing through a narrow passageway, he found himself within a closed courtyard. Looking up to his left, he saw the great tower. The door to this was slightly ajar also. He headed over, slowly. "Hello!" he shouted as he crossed the courtyard. Following the path around the tennis courts, he got to the bottom of the external stair of the tower. "It's James from Kennelly's estate agents." Still no reply, so he started up the steps. Reaching the tower door, he pushed it open, renewing his appeals for the owner to come see him. On entering the little hallway, he saw a small door on his left side, which had a little wooden sign. Porter's Lodge, it proclaimed. He knocked and stepped back. After a full minute, there was still no response, so he opened the door and called, "Hello!" Wasn't much of a room. A two-seater Regency-style loveseat, a wall-mounted cabinet full of very large keys, and another two doors, one in front of him and one on his right. Best foot forward, he thought, and knocked before immediately opening the door. Through this door, he found a large banqueting hall, solid stone floor, rich tapestries hanging across what he discovered were deep window arches. Ranging from 7 to 9 foot deep, the window arches were lined with stone benches down the sides, which were cushioned in royal blue velvet. The room was heated by a huge fireplace, some 10 feet wide, with a massive iron brazier supporting the firewood. James thought this was amazing. The logs were probably the size of him, in both height and width. The room was dominated by tables arranged in an inverted U shape, all ready for the next banquet to start. Seeing as he hadn't found the owner yet, he decided to explore the building and carry on with his evaluation. He took a few steps, took a few snaps to show the scale of the banqueting hall, and then made his way upstairs. The first room he came to appeared to be a study. The walls were lined with books. Some of them seemed very well aged. There was a large desk facing the window in the north wall, and the chair was pulled away, as if the person had just nipped out of the room. James took photographs showing the scale of the office, and then a book caught his eye on the lower shelf. Excuse me. On the lower shelf, he had spotted what appeared to be a copy of the Doomsday Book. He bent down to the knee-high shelf and had just touched the spine, about to lift it off the shelf. "Put that down and get out of here," a voice behind him bellowed. I'm sorry, he said, turning round. "I was just..." He stopped mid-sentence as he realized there was no one in the room. Reasoning that they had probably moved to a different room, he went back to the stairs, listening to see which direction the footsteps were going in. Stopping at the little viewing balcony looking down into the banquet hall, he noticed a costumed guide in a royal blue Regency gown. He called out, "Hello," as she passed across the room from the window to the door. Apparently, she had not heard him. No matter. This was a brilliant viewpoint to show the scale of the hall, and so he took another couple of snaps, then carried on upstairs. Thirsty work, this, you know. When he reached the next landing, James could see this floor had 2 rooms on his left and a minstrel's gallery overlooking the banquet hall. He took another couple of snaps of the hall and then walked to the other end of the gallery. The 2 doors were marked with the same crude signage, one stating "Privy" and the other stating "Gamesman." It had been a long drive, so James decided to use the facilities. While washing his hands, he became aware of voices in the next room. Hurrying to dry his hands, he opened the door and knocked on the gamesman's door. No answer. He knocked again. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I need a word with you." No answer. He banged on the door. "I know you're in there. I just heard you talking." James lunged forward and threw the door open. He was greeted by an unexpected sight. The room was utterly empty, save for the items of furniture you would expect to find in a works lodging room, such as a bed and a writing desk. Hanging on the wall were old-fashioned type rabbit snares, and an empty space where a rifle or shotgun usually sat by the look of it. Embarrassed, but thankfully still alone, He stepped out of the room and back onto the landing. Closing the door as quietly as he possibly could, looking around to make sure he was totally alone, he straightened his hair and resumed his explorations. He went up a few steps until he was on a little mini balcony. He stopped, struck by the sheer silence on that level. He couldn't hear a single sound. Then there was a little click of a latch in a door. Looking over the railing, he saw a man come out of the gamesman room. The man must have been 6 feet plus, with a shock of red woolly hair and a ruddy complexion, thanks to the country folk rosacea that everyone around this area seemed to have. Judging by the rifle on his arm, he had to be the gamesman. As James looked at him, the man lifted his games. "You all right, sir?" he said in a very gruff voice. James nodded and said, "Oh, wait there a second." He rushed to go back down the few stairs. Reaching the landing again, there was no sign of the man. James gave up trying to find someone at this point. It was obvious nobody wanted to speak to him. So he just went about his business, photographing the rest of the house. Up out onto the roof, where he took panoramic shots, more for himself than anything else. You could see for at least 20 miles from this vantage point, and the views were fantastic. James had completed his task and got some really nice photos for his collection as well. He couldn't wait to get these rolls of film developed. He came back down the stairs, whistling loudly in the hopes that the owner would hear him and finally come and speak to him. There was no response at all. On reaching the front door of the tower, he turned to the empty banqueting hall and said loudly, "Well, goodbye, it was nice meeting you," in a rather sarcastic tone. He waited a few seconds. The only reply was deafening silence, so he left and closed the door tight on his way out. Sorry about this. Crossing the courtyard, he turned and waved just to give the proper appearance. He made his way down the drive, back to his car. James stopped in the next town to grab a bite to eat. He dropped off the film roll at one of the 1-hour processing stores in the shopping centre and went for his lunch. After a bite to eat, he dropped back to the store to collect his photos. He presented the stub the previous clerk had given him. The shop girl went through the back, came back with the envelopes. "Oh yeah, I remember seeing these. I just love the castle. I take my little girl there for picnics all the time," she said, smiling. "And the owner doesn't mind?" James asked. "I should hope not. Anyway, they aren't around anymore, are they?" she said with a little giggle. "What do you mean, not around anymore?" James said quizzically. "Didn't you know? That place got burned down in 1968 and no one fixed it up. It's unsafe now. You can't get inside because the roof is piled up on the floor, blocking the entrance. And the whole thing will collapse shortly, if nobody does anything." James looked at her dumbstruck. He opened his envelope, and sure enough, all the photographs were of a ruined building, quite similar to the one he visited that morning. But they couldn't be the same place, surely. He asked her again, "What's the name of that old place again?" "Hawthorne Manor. You've been there, going by your photos anyway." James flicked through them. No, this was a roll of film a friend asked me to develop for him. Can you tell me how to get to Hawthorne Manor?" "Sure, it's 3 miles from the town centre. Just keep going uphill, and it's the second turning on the right, just after you come off the long corner surrounded by the trees." Confused and shocked, James went back to the car and headed straight back to Hawthorne Manor. He parked up and briskly walked, almost ran up the driveway. He couldn't see the gate because it was obscured by brambles and bracken. He looked up towards the tower and he couldn't believe his eyes. The house was in ruins. He stood there gazing at the tower house, then flicked through his photos again. The pictures he had taken from the gate when he arrived that morning was exactly as he had seen it, with the well-kept path leading toward the tower. But every other photo was of this ruin that he was now looking at. That is based loosely on a true story. It is a building that's local to here. Some of you may recognise it from the descriptions. I'm just having a look to see what else we might have in the book. Where are we? So what do we think so far? Let's have a look and see what... I'm sure there's another ghost story in here. We do have some poetry about graves and graveyards. Shall I continue? Do you want a couple poems about graves and graveyards? Yeah? Right. This one is called The Raven. Not Edgar Allan Poe's Raven, by the way. A raven through the tombs in flight, his soul guiding mission within his sight. Who can hear the unguided one's plight, their souls entwined within the endless fight. Up or down, above or below, until we get there, we'll never know. So do your deeds and sow your seeds, live your life the best way you can. For no one knows, neither God nor man, sunshine or hail, no one knows what's beyond the veil. Here's another cemetery one. Frosty Cemetery, right? Sunlight sparking on granite. The myriad quartz chips bring dead stone to life. The rays refracting through the mist, a million rainbows that you cannot miss. The grass is still crunching on each step. The frost has a grip it cannot hold for long. There's life in this bone garden, and winter is almost done. The snowdrops are peaking, for spring has sprung. Sure, there's another cemetery one. One more cemetery one, and then we will call it a night. Where is it gone? I really should have put bookmarks in, huh? It's here somewhere. I do like this music. It was a random pick. Merry Christmas, darling. Hope you have a great time. I'm looking for my fallen leaves. Ah, there we go. Early fall or fallen leaves. Silent, sleeping souls. A soft, silvery blanket above their earthen bed. A weathered stone atop each head. The blood-red leaves, so beautiful on the tree, now lie like their hosts on the ground, dead. Each life is but a season. To some there is no reason. Will they live till their winter or die in their spring? The snow comes early, so why not their time? Each stone bears a name, when and where, their time. Some flowers here, no flowers there. How long ago? And do you care? Their beds are immortal, each stone a proclamation. I was here, after all. But who among you can hear their calls? Silent, sleeping souls, a silvery blanket above their earthen beds, a naming stone above their heads, the leaves, like blood, spattered across. But did they find their wondrous cross? And with that, I will leave you. I will bid you all a very, very Merry Christmas. I hope Santa's good to you, and I hope you're good for Santa. And we'll see you in the new year. Merry Christmas, and a very happy Hogmanay. Happy hauntings!